should the Colts draft Will Levis at the number 4th overall selection? Is he worth the 4th overall pick? Yes and no. He has a lot of pros, a lot of cons. I think the cons outweigh the pros in this situation. But Will Levis is a pro-ready quarterback with a lot of upside. Big arm, big frame. He's got prototypical size, huge arm, as I already mentioned. There's a lot to like about Will Levis. There's a lot to look into where you're like, damn, Will Levis has a chance to be a good quarterback in the NFL. And then you watch, a lot of the film, it's like, why? Why do you throw here? Or how? How do you miss this guy? And that's where it comes in, where it's like, is the big arm and the big frame worth it? He can move a little bit as well. That's very important in this day's NFL. But some of the pros, we've already mentioned the arm power. Ran a pro-style offense in college for a couple of years now. He can move just enough. His toughness, he has great toughness. This last year, he was hurt often. And he still played. He still played through it. Now, did he play great? No. In the beginning of the season, he looked pretty good. As the season went on, played better programs, more talented teams, and he struggled. And he ultimately struggled to bring his team to wins. And sometimes it's not all just about playing and throwing the ball. Sometimes it's about leading the team and just finding a way to win. And Will Levis, not sure if he has that. Not sure if he just has the winning in his blood. If he just has the winning there. Sometimes it's you have it or you don't. And that brings us into some more cons that he has. His mechanics are inconsistent, which leads to his accuracy being inconsistent. His production isn't very impressive. And if you go through and see how teams responded to his interviews in the draft process, they weren't too impressed. So he's actually dropping down boards as we speak. At one point, he was considered a top 5 quarterback, top 5 prospect, talent. Now he's kind of like drooping down into top 10, top 15. And that's because his interviews didn't go well. Bombed the interviews. And when you're a quarterback, you're not only playing football, you not only need to be great at football, to want to play and work your ass off every single day. You need to be able to lead a team, to lead men, to be a great football team, to be a great quarterback. It all starts with the leader. Now, the head coach has a big part in helping the quarterback get to that point, but you can't teach a quarterback leadership. And in some interviews, it just kind of seems like he's kind of like has this arrogant attitude. And sometimes coaches don't want to deal with that. You have enough to deal with maybe sharpening the mechanics, sharpening this, teaching him about this, learning the coverages, learning this, learning that. Learning how to set protections. Sometimes you don't have time. Sometimes you can't deal with the quarterback like that. Very difficult to coach. But he's a quarterback that's going to be ready day one. Does this mean that he's going to be a great quarterback? No. He's a high-risk prospect. And back to the mechanics part. We mentioned that earlier. His mechanics are inconsistent. His footwork is inconsistent. And that's something that leads to his accuracy issues. He could throw 70, 80 yards on the field. He can't always control his arm. And the way he throws is he really winds it up. Brings the elbow back and kind of like puts his elbow into it. And that's where a lot of the accuracy issues come from, and just him not knowing how to control his arm. And a guy that has a crazy strong arm, he needs to know how to control it. If you can't, what's the point? If you can't get a 5-yard pass to an out and you can't make it an easy catch without throwing it so high, you question it. You need to be able to make these simple throws, and sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he struggles with the intermediate throws. He has the arm talent, the arm power to make any throw needed. He has to find control. And this is where I think Shane Steichen could come in and help Will Levis. Shane Steichen is an incredible quarterback coach. He helped Justin Herbert win Offensive Rookie of the Year. He went to Philadelphia and he brought Jalen Hurts to be an incredible weapon for that offense, an incredible player. Was he an incredible passer on his own? I think he was a much more dynamic player than just a passer. But maybe Shane Steichen can help him with these mechanics, right? But it's hard to teach leadership. When you're arrogant, your leadership is a question. And he bombed these interviews. There's something that these pro coaches, general managers, owners don't like about him. He doesn't give up this good vibe, maybe. And there is a fine line in your quarterback having lots of confidence and not. There's a fine line. You need your quarterback to have confidence in himself, in his teammates, in his coach, in everything. But there's a difference in having confidence and arrogance. Seems like Will Levis has a little bit of arrogance. Well, and sometimes these guys just don't change. But you also talk about his supporting cast. The Kentucky offensive line was horrible. It didn't give him much time at all. So, in the offensive lines that he is going to come into the NFL, they're all going to be much better than Kentucky's. But don't forget the defenses are going to be faster. So you also got to remember he's going to have to process information much faster. And I'm not sure if Will Levis can process a coverage that well. That's something that's very hard to teach. It's either you have it or you don't. So it's like, is Will Levis worth the 4th overall pick? No, he's not. Because, yeah, he has toughness. He played with the injury, and that's important. The team likes that. But his accuracy is a question. Can he process at a pro rate? Not sure. Teams don't like his attitude. He bombed interviews. So it's like, you're kind of hoping that CJ Stroud kind of drops to 3 because CJ Stroud is worth a top 5 pick. Will Levis is not. And it's just because he's got a lot to work on. It's easy to fall in love with his arm power and his physical abilities. But by the time he's 23, and he's been playing for quite a while now, sometimes you have it or you don't in some categories of the game. And it's either you have it or you don't in the most important categories, in the most important metrics. And he hasn't had production either. Could hurt. His supporting cast wasn't great. So maybe that had a play in it. But he has had receivers open in which he missed in Kentucky. So, and if you look at it, Sean Clifford beat him out over at Penn State, which made him transfer to Kentucky. That raises some questions. Maybe it was more of a character issue because Penn State is very traditional. Very traditional in that stance. So, I say Will Levis is not worth it. Maybe he's pro ready. maybe he knows what a pro offense, how it's ran. Doesn't mean he can run it. So, you guys let me know what you think. Will the Colts draft Will Levis at number 4? Now, like I said, I think Shane Steichen would be a lot of fun in terms of teaching Will Levis. I think if there's a coach in this league, Shane Steichen can maybe do it. Now, Anthony Richardson, I love Anthony Richardson. Love the tools, but he's like 2 or 3 years away. He's not 1 year away. He's like 2 or 3 years away from playing football, from being able to be a starter. He's so raw. He played, 1 year, and he barely played? He doesn't have the experience. He's going to have to sit a year or 2, 3. And he doesn't have the accuracy yet. He doesn't have his mechanics down. By the time you get into the NFL, you want your mechanics to be pretty solid. Because you can't be thinking about where you're planting your feet, how you're throwing the ball. You can't be thinking about that. You have a million other things you need to be thinking about pre and post snap. You need to think about, how's my offensive line set up? What kind of matchups favor my wide receivers? What is a defense in? What is the defense set up in? There's so much more, that's why mechanics and the accuracy behind it need to be there. Because by the time you get in the NFL, you don't have time for it. Your abilities need to be natural. They need to just be able to do them without thinking about them. And that's what's difficult with Will Levis and quarterbacks that just don't have great mechanics coming out. You need to be ready. I'm not sure if he is. I'm not sure if he's the guy, if he could be the guy. You guys let me know what you think. Thank you for tuning in to the JDW Sports Talk Show, where every fan is welcome. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to like, subscribe, put the post notification bell on so you do not miss any future videos. This is JDW Sports Talk Show, signing off.